All right, this next topic comes from one of my favorite Elm conference talks of all time. Luke Westby gave an amazing talk about how to use web components to embed JavaScript inside of your Elm app. So that's what I'm going to be showing you today. We already looked at flags and ports, which are kind of the official ways to use Elm with JavaScript, but web components was kind of like a discovery. It came later because Elm predated all this web component stuff. So let's take a look at how we can use this to add like a little special JavaScript component inside our Elm app without the Elm virtual DOM getting confused. Let's take a look together. Okay, so we left off with some local storage stuff. Pretty sick app, if you ask me. It's pretty sick, where we have these counts over here. We can add our counter, and when we refresh, it's saving it to local storage. So when we get the count, it's always up to date with whatever the Elm app sent. So that was us using ports, that was us using flags together. What I want to do is I want to make a new component that is kind of pure JavaScript. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new file, web components, and let's think, what's a fun web component we can make? I don't know, let's just make like a little, it's a really good question. I am drawing a blank here. Do I have any notes on what I want to make? PrismJS. PrismJS is kind of advanced. Let's do it. All right, PrismJS .js. So let's say we have a Prism code block. So I have a personal website that is using Elm, and there's this really nice code highlighting library called Prism that's available in the JavaScript ecosystem. So this is an incredibly practical example of what that looks like. So PrismJS allows you to have a code sample, and it runs a bunch of JavaScript. And what it does with it is it adds syntax highlighting to your code blocks. So let me show you what I mean. So let's just make a normal code block here, and I'll show you where that falls short. So here I've got this plus button, pre-code, module main exposing, new line, import HTML. So this is a little code block here. Let's add some CSS to give this some style. So background color is going to be white, and the color is going to be black. We're going to add some padding here, and we're going to add some rounded edges to this thing. That's too round. That's just too round for me. All right. So here I've got this little code block, but I want to bring in some JavaScript so that I can run some syntax highlighting on this. If I try to just bring in Prism as is, let's see what happens to me. I think bad things happen to me because Elm is trying to control what gets rendered, and then Prism comes in and it changes everything up. So I think that'll be a bad time. But let's take a look. Let's see what happens. Oops. How do I scroll on this computer? Download. So what I want to do is development version. Let's just have everything. All right, let's do the minified version. And what we're going to do is we are just going to grab Elm syntax highlighting. All right, so just Elm. So I'm going to hit this check. So we just have Elm syntax highlighting. And what we can do is, we can download the JavaScript. Yeah, I trust it. And we can download the CSS. Yeah, I trust it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open this up. I'm going to copy these two. And then we're going to go back into our documents folder, into this Elm modules project that we're working on. And what I'm going to do is just make a new folder in here. New folder. What the heck? New folder. Am I crazy? Is there no new folder? Whatever, I'm just gonna paste it. I lose. I don't know how to add a folder, I guess. Okay, that's just who I am. Okay, this is old. Let's get back to this. So I've got the PrismJS thing here. And so what I want to do is I want to import prism.css, and I want to import this prism.js into my Vite project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import prism.css. I think this will work okay. So that works. And then when I call prism.js, I don't know what it's going to do. So this might work okay. And I think how Prism works by default is I need to have some type of like language ID on the code blocks. Let's take a look at how Prism works. Examples, type of window, do all this. What is it doing? Basic usage. So we're going to add these in, and then we're going to use class language Elm. So that's how we're going to be able to do that. Is we're going to add a class attribute to this. And I think we're going to have some issues. So I refreshed, everything works, but as I update my counter, it's not always reliable to do things this way, because let's say here, this is a perfect example. I want this to be, user input. So let's say we have a text area for our app where we have some user input over here, user input. So this is what the user typed in. So we're going to do that. And then over here, we're going to say model.user input. This all works great. But if I add a text area that's going to be responsible for, like on input events, changed code, this is when we're going to start to run into issues with this approach. So I'm just going to expose all the events. And then I'm going to have a changed code handler that's going to take in whatever that user typed. Changed code, string. This is going to be the new code. And then I'm going to say model user input equals whatever the new code is in that text area. And we're not going to do anything else. And what I want to do is just make it so that this text area has the value that's bound to whatever the user input is. So the initial value also matches. So you'll see that I have this, and I'm going to open up the inspect element tab so we can see things crash. I think things are going to go horrible. If I hit backspace, I've got a console error all of a sudden, and it just totally crashed my Elm situation. Look at all this. Look at all these errors I got. Totally crazy. Why did that happen? Well, what happened was when we ran Prism completely changed the HTML that Elm rendered. So when Elm came in to change like this one line, when it wanted to just update the text node over here, by the time it came in, it wasn't a text node anymore. It was like a span. So like the HTML element that Elm tried to update got switched out from underneath it. And this is a reason why you don't want to modify or run JavaScript that's just going to modify any random part of the page when you're using a framework like React or when you're using a language like Elm. It's because you're going to run into a situation where you just don't know, what it's going to change and what it's going to mess up. So the way we can fix this is by using a web component. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take all of this. This is kind of like the old approach, view old approach, where we are allowing it to modify, this CSS, and we need to pass in the model if we're going to do the old approach. So I'm just going to kind of keep a copy of this here, and what we're going to use a web component. So view new approach. This version is not going to have the bugs that our old code had. So Prism pre is going to be a new element where we're going to pass in the user input as a property. So we're going to say property user input, and we're going to say JSON.encode string. This is going to allow us to pass in that code to our web component as a JavaScript property. And this is all stuff available from the HTML package, and this is from the HTML attributes package. So I'm just going to qualify those so that you can see where they're coming from. And at the end of the day, this is still just taking in a model and returning some HTML. It's no different than the old approach. So we are just making a custom element, just like we can make a div or a button or a paragraph. We're going to render a Prism pre-tag. And so what we're going to see with this new approach here, let me import json.encode. JSON.encode just turns that string into a JSON value so that we can use it with property. But let me copy this over. And what we get is, if you look at what's getting rendered down here, the code isn't quite working yet, but that's because Prism pre isn't rendering that, that stuff yet because we haven't made the web component. So I'm going to rename this to Prism pre. And what we're going to do is we are going to export a default const Prism, or it's going to be a class actually, class Prism pre extends HTML element. And what we're going to have is a connected callback. This is going to get called console.log. This is my web component. So I've got this Prism pre-tag here. I've got, this is my web component. And all we're going to do is come back to our main.js file, and we are going to import assets, web components, Prism pre. And now that we have this, we're going to say Prism pre from that. Actually, let's do it that way. Import Prism pre. It's going to import that from here. And before we start our app, start our Elm app, we are going to register our web components window.customelements.define prism-pre, just like we said in the Elm code. And we are going to say use this class. And so what you'll see is we still have the Prism pre here, but we're logging this message. This is my web component. So just by rendering this special node and by creating this web component with this console log function, and then by registering it here with window.customelements, we just created our first web component. And what's cool about that is not only can I print out this is my web component, or I can print out hi from prism-pre, which you can see here. I also have access to the data that we passed in, this.userInput. So you can see that code is right here. And every time I type, we're not actually seeing it change here. We'll get to that before we wrap up this video. But the cool thing is it is sending that code right. This is kind of like the init function for our web component. So what we can do is we can create some elements. Let pre equal document.createElement. Pre. Let code equal document.createElement. Code. And then we can say code.classList.add language.elm. And then what we can do is we can say pre.appendChild code, say code.appendChild. We can say code. I guess inner text equals the user input. And then we can say this.appendChild pre. So this is going to add our code inside the code block. This is going to attach the code to that pre-tag, and this is going to put the pre-tag on the page. And boom, we've got exactly what we expected here. I guess inner HTML is going to preserve that white space. We got to be careful with what we type because I think we can escape the HTML if we do it the dumb way. But what's cool is now as we type stuff, we're not getting errors anymore. Hello world. So as we're typing in here, everything's working okay. We're not crashing, but our code block isn't updating, and that's because we haven't set up any listeners on that property. So in order to do that, I think the solution is custom elements, listen for property changes. Attribute callback changed is for attributes. Oops, yeah, whatever, take all my data. But what we can do is I think we can use a setter here. User input set. Look. How the heck does setters work? I forget how you make properties. Custom elements. No. What we want is MDN class property setter. Set. This is what we want. So we want set classes set. Is this real? Is that it? Just do set user input. Console.log new value. That's right. Yeah, it's okay. Let me see if this actually works. Undefined, and then as I type, okay, cool. So every time I'm typing, we're getting that event, and all we have to do is basically just re-render this element. I'm gonna do it the dumb way, where we're gonna say this dot inner HTML equals nothing, and what we're gonna do is we're just going to we're gonna add pre and code here. I'm gonna be really lazy with this web component. We've got some local properties, and what I want to do is just have this, which is render code in element. We'll do this dot render code in element. We could do this dot code, this dot pre. We're just doing JavaScript things. It's the Wild West. We get to have fun. This dot code, this dot pre, append this dot code, this dot pre. And so every time this changes, we're just going to call, or say if new value. Then we're gonna say we're gonna call this dot render code and element. So I think this will work. Oh, this dot code dot inner HTML. Oh, sorry, this dot. Oh, this dot inner HTML, this dot pre. Null is not an object. This dot code dot inner HTML. Private. I don't know how anything works. Sure. All right, we'll do it like that. What the heck? If new value. What? What is this? Is undefined like a string that we're getting? What the heck is this? What value is not equal to undefined? It's not equal to undefined? What is this? Where is this undefined coming from? Anyway, it's JavaScript. So this I use web components, everyone. All right, so let's just type some stuff. HTML equals nothing. This is this.user input. This.user input. I can say, oh, you know what? I don't think I'm actually ever setting it. New value. I think this is right. What the heck? You know what? It's because I'm creating a property that's listening, but I want to have a secret property that's actually storing it. So I think this is like user input equals this. And then what I want to do is have a getter for user input, which just returns this dot underscore user input. This is just some weird JavaScript stuff. Sorry about that. unexpected token, get. What the heck is a get? How does a get work? Get. Do I not use a get? JavaScript, please. It's a function. Great. Okay. Okay, thank goodness. All right, that was embarrassing. That was real time sweating. All right, cool. So we have that, and then what we can do is we can just re-render that Prism on that thing. So Prism has an API for highlighting the code and doing that manually. I think that probably the easiest way is to just do it that way. But the important thing is that our thing isn't crashing. There's just a little bit more work we have to do to make Prism rerun when we're doing this re-render code and element bit. But I think Prism.highlight all might be the solution here. So import that events. Oh, look at that. We've got it. So now we've got syntax highlighting. We've embedded some JavaScript functionality in our app. And good thing I know all these things off the top of my head. Otherwise, this would be a really bad tutorial. Anyway, that's web components. All this code I'm going to make available publicly online and stuff. So if you want access to it and you can't find it anywhere, just let me know. But it should be a link below. There should be a gist with all this stuff, or a GitHub repo or something like that. Yeah, so that's it. That's interop with JavaScript. Thanks for hanging out, and I'm going to catch you in the next session where we take a look at making single page applications. We're really close. You guys are almost Elm experts. So start feeling good, and I'll see you there.